I've been working out for over 35 years, but what trumps all of that is this is the way our early ancestors have lived for 2.5 million years. And if our early ancestors could make it into adolescence, they were free of depression, free of anxiety, free of arthritis, free of low energy. They lived a life that was robust and full of strength, health, and happiness.
The health status of hunter-gatherers, whether past or modern, tend to be the main evidence that ancestral eating advocates use to justify the claim that humans today in the modern world should be eating like modern hunter-gatherers or past hunter-gatherers, and that meat and honey and all these other past things that are more natural are what we should be eating daily for good health and longevity. But after watching this video, if you're intellectually honest, you will understand why this kind of reasoning is so flawed. And you'll also just have a good point to make toward ancestral eating advocates in general, because this is the main kind of evidence they use when trying to justify their lifestyle. Hey, what is going on, guys? So today we're going to talk about Bear Grylls and a recent Instagram post he made concerning ancestral eating and ancestral eating in general, and why most of the advocates that, advocate for ancestral eating use a mode of argument that is extremely flawed. To my knowledge, Bear is quite known in the UK and has been part of multiple TV shows such as Man vs. Wild, You vs. Wild, The Island with Bear Grylls, and more. I'll be honest, I had no idea who this guy was prior to discovering this post he made about ancestral eating, but one of you guys who follow me in the UK told me that many Brits consider him a joke. Now, whether or not this is true, I don't really know. Let me know in the comments below. But either way, his following is quite massive. He made a post praising the Hazda people. Not really sure how you pronounce that, but we're gonna go with Hazda. And these are people who are considered modern hunter-gatherers living in North Tanzania. They are considered one of the last hunter-gatherer tribes in Africa, with approximately 1,300 tribe members. So let's go ahead and read the caption of the post. This is interesting to me. Over 90% of what the incredible Hazda people in Tanzania eat comes from hunting and gathering around their camps, and they are insanely healthy, vibrant, happy, and free from so many of the chronic illnesses that plague our society, such as diabetes, obesity, depression, and autoimmune disease. Contrary to popular belief, they live as long as we do, with much greater health spans, and they are vital much later in life than Western counterparts, climbing trees and hunting all day, well into old age. So I was interested to see what they like to eat. Answer: meat, organs, and fat from the biggest animal they can hunt. But also understanding how they prioritize food was so interesting, and the findings are clear. The focus is on meat always, animal foods first, then followed by honey and fruit, like berries. Then a distant fourth would be tubers or roots, most of which are spit out because they are so fibrous. They don't even glance at a, quote, vegetable. The Hazda live in a way that suggests that organs, meat, fruit, honey, and raw dairy work as a healthy lifestyle, and reminds me that those foods have been the most sought after foods by humans for millions of years. Oh, vegans, have we never heard this before? Could this play a part in what allows their health to thrive? Thoughts? Hashtag natural foods. Hashtag ancestral. Hashtag tuition. Thanks for your health advice as always at Clownivore MD 2.0. Oh, sorry, I mean Carnivore MD 2.0 at Carnivore Aurelius at Liver King. I fear I may have got much of my nutrition understanding wrong in years gone by. All right, guys, much to unpack here, and I'm not too familiar with this guy, like I said before, but I do feel a little bit bad for him when you consider the ending of the caption. I mean, he looks at Liver King, Carnivore Aurelius, and Clownivore MD 2.0 as really solid sources of nutrition advice, and at the end of the caption he says, I fear I may have got much of my nutrition understanding wrong in the years gone by. This makes me feel bad because, as we're going to see in this video, he is still on the completely wrong path, while now thinking he is now on the right path. So this guy is basically thinking that the amazing health of the Hazda people suggests that organs, meat, fruit, honey, and raw dairy work as a healthy lifestyle. The health status of hunter-gatherers, whether past or modern, tend to be the main evidence that ancestral eating advocates use to justify the claim that humans today in the modern world should be eating like modern hunter-gatherers or past hunter-gatherers, and that meat and honey and all these other past things that are more natural are what we should be eating daily for good health and longevity. But after watching this video, if you're intellectually honest, you will understand why this kind of reasoning is so flawed, and you'll also just have a good point to make toward ancestral eating advocates in general, because this is the main kind of evidence they use when trying to justify their lifestyle. They just say, look, they're so healthy, so why don't we just eat like them? Now, I've mentioned on my channel before Nutrivore and his article on why this kind of thinking is problematic, but I've never really gone into it. And this extremely silly caption makes me want to go through some of the article with you guys to really help break down why this train of thought by ancestral advocates is so flawed, basically so I never have to address this ancestral eating nonsense ever again. It's extremely pervasive on the internet. And just a brief tangent into ethics, you gotta wonder how many more animals have been bred, exploited, and murdered in the name of this new ancestral eating movement that has been rising to the surface lately, which is primarily comprised of animal products. The ancestral diet, similar to the carnivore diet, is one of the most damaging diets with respect to bred into existence animals who must die for them, so I find it pretty important for animal rights activists to at the very least debunk the various health myths concerning them. Anyway, let's get back to the article. I will not be reading the entire article, just the part that I think is most relevant, but if you'd like to read the entire thing, it will be linked in the caption of this video. I strongly recommend that you do. It is a fantastic article. Many paleo diet advocates claim that hunter-gatherer diets optimally promote the long-term health of human beings. There are typically two primary justifications for this claim. Firstly, the fact that hunter-gatherer populations typically appear to be robustly healthy, and secondly, the fact that humans evolved eating these types of diets. While these are technically statements of fact, I find myself forced to take a page out of the paleo dieters playbook as I remind them that correlation doesn't equal causation, so let's dig into why their reasoning is flawed. Firstly, let me hit you with a thought experiment for a moment. Do you think that the elderly people within a given population would appear either more healthy or less healthy if that population never had access to modern medical technology? Think about this for a moment. You may understandably intuit that their health would probably be worse, correct? But that probably isn't what would happen. They would probably appear healthier, and I'll explain why. If a population never had access to modern medical technology, one of the things you couldn't reliably do is save sick or injured children. No matter what culture you observe, a sizable proportion of children will develop infectious illnesses. These illnesses, like bacterial or viral infections, are generally mundane by modern standards. However, without modern medicine, many children who develop these types of illnesses would likely not survive them. Those who are prone to illness likely do not have the same chances of survival as those who are less prone to illness. As such, why wouldn't the elderly in this hypothetical population present with more robust health as a result? Without medical intervention, the environment is essentially selecting for the fittest possible individuals in our hypothetical population. This would likely generate the appearance of more robust health in the elderly. Consider this carefully for a moment. If you weed out all of the weaker people, of course the remaining population is going to appear stronger. Oh, and just a heads up guys, it is true that the Hadza people have little to no access to healthcare or medical facilities, so the specific critique Nutrivore is trying to make here does apply to the Hadza population. This presents a significant problem for paleo diet advocates who choose to cite the robust health of hunter-gatherer populations as a justification for the paleo diet, or as a justification for recommending the diet to others. Most paleo dieters do seem to be aware of the environmental adversity faced by hunter-gatherer populations, but they often don't seem to appreciate how this also produces significant changes for their narrative. For example, if you remind a paleo dieter that hunter-gatherers typically had an average life expectancy of around 30 years, they will often immediately retort by stating that those estimates are confounded by infant and child mortality. But therein lies the problem. They can't have it both ways. A paleo diet advocate cannot use that argument without tacitly admitting that infant and child mortality is typically enormously high among hunter-gatherer populations, which it most certainly is. Approximately 26.8% of infants and 48.8% of prepubescent children die in hunter-gatherer populations. With such a high proportion of children dying, how could it be the case that the apparent health of elderly hunter-gatherers is not colored by this? Remember, hunter-gatherer populations likely appear healthier because the least resilient members of those populations are already dead. Paleo diet advocates cannot admit that hunter-gatherer populations had high rates of infant and child mortality without also admitting that the resulting population is a heavily biased sample. This type of confounding is known as survivorship bias. Basically, survivorship bias is a type of selection bias that can occur when those who do not survive a selection event or process are overlooked in favor of those who did survive. For example, let's say we were trying to construct better body armor for soldiers to wear in combat. Perhaps we might conduct a study of soldiers who return from battle. We could collect bullet wound distribution pattern data to help ascertain where soldiers were most likely to get shot. However, As we see in the graphic above, this sort of analysis would exclude all those who were shot and did not survive. It would also overlook the sorts of bullet wound distribution patterns that tended to lead to death, which would actually have given us a significantly clearer picture of how we might construct better body armor. Likewise, when paleo diet advocates claim that we should eat like hunter-gatherers because hunter-gatherers are robustly healthy, they're not appreciating how survivorship bias is confounding their appraisal of hunter-gatherer health. They are essentially overlooking the other 50% of the hunter-gatherer population that didn't survive. For this reason, it is dubious to use the apparent good health of hunter-gatherers as the basis for the assumption that their diets are appropriate for modern humans. Until paleo diet advocates can figure out a way to explain why survivorship bias would not be confounding in an evaluation of hunter-gatherer health, they cannot rely on the apparent good health of hunter-gatherer populations to determine the applicability of hunter-gatherer diets to modern humans. In reality, the degree to which hunter-gatherer diets are appropriate for modern health remains unclear. Alright guys, we're going to stop there, but like I said before, please read the whole article. I'll have it linked in the caption. But anyway, I hope it is clear at this point why the main kind of evidence that ancestral eating advocates like to cite to make it seem like their diets are healthy is actually extremely flawed. Survivorship bias, as discussed by Nutrivore, or Nick, in the article, is extremely problematic for their case. And just remember what Bear was saying in the caption of the post that initially motivated this video. He was saying things like they are insanely healthy, vibrant, happy, and free from so many chronic illnesses that plague our society, such as diabetes, obesity, depression, and autoimmune illnesses. He was saying things about them having greater health spans, etc. And as we know now, after understanding what survivorship bias is, this sample is completely shit. He's attributing most of their good health to their diet, when in reality, this sample is extremely flawed and subject to survivorship bias. So guys, if you ever come across somebody advocating for the ancestral eating or ancestral diet or whatever, just ask them, why do you think that we should be eating ancestrally? They're most likely going to hit you with, oh my god, look at the health outcomes of hunter-gatherers or modern hunter-gatherers or the Hazda. And at that point, you can send them this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to help me continue to do this full time, you can support me on Patreon, which comes with early access to content, access to my private Discord, and more. Oh, and definitely subscribe to Nutrivore, as I've said on this channel multiple times now. I will see you guys in the next video.
Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who's your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe